Have you ever wondered how America, the superpower we see today, began its journey? Our story takes us back to 1607 when English settlers first established a colony in Jamestown, Virginia. This was not a journey for the faint of heart. It was a voyage fraught with danger, uncertainty, and hardship. The vast Atlantic Ocean separated these settlers from their homeland, and the dense, unexplored wilderness of the New World lay before them. The settlers, who were mostly merchants, adventurers, and those seeking religious freedom, faced harsh conditions. The land was difficult to tame, the weather was extreme, and diseases were rampant. Their survival depended on their ability to adapt to these new conditions and learn from the native tribes who were already living on the continent. The Native American tribes, each with their own unique culture and way of life, were the original inhabitants of this land. They had a deep respect for nature and were skilled in hunting, farming, and navigating the vast wilderness. The settlers' interactions with these tribes were complex and fraught with tension, but also brought about exchanges of knowledge and culture. As the settlers began to establish their own society, they grappled with questions of governance and law. This led to the signing of the Mayflower Compact in 1620, a significant milestone in the development of American democracy. This document, signed aboard the ship Mayflower before its passengers disembarked at Plymouth, Massachusetts, was a social contract in which the settlers agreed to follow just and equal laws made by leaders of their own choosing. This moment was a pivotal one. It marked the start of self-governance, a concept that would later be central to the American identity. The Mayflower Compact laid the groundwork for the democratic ideals that would shape the nation's future. Ideals of freedom, equality, and justice. From these humble beginnings, a spark was ignited that would grow into the United States of America. The story of America is one of determination, resilience, and an unyielding belief in the power of the people. It's a story that continues to unfold, shaped by the actions of its people and the events of its past. But how did America free itself from British rule and establish its independence? Let's turn back the pages of history to the mid-18th century. The 13 American colonies were growing increasingly disgruntled with the British rule, primarily due to the heavy taxation imposed on them without any representation in the British Parliament. This discontentment eventually led to the famed Boston Tea Party in December of 1773, where American patriots dumped 342 chests of British tea into the Boston harbor as an act of defiance. This act of rebellion did not go unnoticed. In response, the British government enacted punitive laws, which the colonists referred to as the Intolerable Acts. These harsh measures only fueled the flames of rebellion, leading the colonies to convene the First Continental Congress in September of 1774. The Congress was a unifying event, bringing together representatives from 12 of the 13 colonies, with Georgia being the only exception. Among these representatives were key figures that would later become synonymous with American independence. George Washington, a charismatic military leader, and Benjamin Franklin, a brilliant statesman and inventor, were among those who led the charge for freedom. The escalating tensions between the colonies and the British culminated in the signing of the Declaration of Independence on July 4, 1776. This historic document, primarily authored by Thomas Jefferson, declared that the American colonies were free and independent states, no longer under British rule. However, the path to independence was far from smooth. The Revolutionary War ensued, a brutal and bloody conflict that lasted for 7 long years. Despite facing a well-trained and better-equipped British army, the ragtag American forces, under the leadership of General George Washington, managed to prevail. The war officially ended with the signing of the Treaty of Paris in 1783. This landmark agreement acknowledged the United States of America as a free, sovereign, and independent nation. The former colonies had successfully cast off British rule and were now ready to navigate the uncharted waters of self-governance. With their newfound independence, the United States was off to a promising start. But what happens when a nation, united in name, becomes divided in spirit? As the United States grew and expanded, so did its internal tensions. The mid-19th century was marked by a profound discord that split the nation into two, the North and the South. This conflict, known as the Civil War, was brought about by two main issues: slavery and states' rights. Slavery, a deeply entrenched institution in the southern states, became a point of contention as the North pushed for its abolition. The South, heavily reliant on slave labor for their agrarian economy, resisted this movement vehemently. This disagreement over slavery was inextricably linked to the broader issue of states' rights, with the southern states arguing that the decision to maintain or abolish slavery should be a state decision, not a federal mandate. These tensions culminated in a bloody conflict that lasted 4 long years, from 1861 to 1865. On one side, we had the Union, led by President Abraham Lincoln, a man committed to preserving the unity of the nation and ending the immoral practice of slavery. On the other, the Confederacy, under the leadership of General Robert E. Lee, defending what they perceived as their rights and way of life. It was during this war that Lincoln issued the Emancipation Proclamation, a document that declared enslaved people in Confederate-held territories to be free. This was a turning point, transforming the war from a battle for union into a battle for freedom. In April of 1865, the war finally came to an end with the surrender of the Confederate forces at Appomattox Courthouse. The cost was high, with over 600,000 lives lost, but the Union was preserved and slavery was on its way to extinction. The Civil War was a dark chapter in American history, but it also led to the abolition of slavery, a significant step forward in the nation's journey towards equality. The scars of this war are still visible today, a stark reminder of the dangers of division and the power of unity. How did America navigate through economic turmoil and global conflict? In the late 20s, America encountered a dire economic catastrophe, the stock market crash of 1929. This calamitous event marked the beginning of the Great Depression, a period of severe worldwide economic downturn that lasted a decade. It was a time of widespread unemployment and poverty, a stark contrast to the prosperous Roaring '20s that preceded it. In the midst of this crisis, one man stepped up to steer America out of the abyss: Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Sworn in as the 32nd President of the United States in 1933, Roosevelt's leadership was instrumental in restoring faith in the American economy. His ambitious plan, known as the New Deal, aimed to stimulate economic recovery and provide relief to the suffering American public. This included programs to reform the financial system, create jobs, and build public works. Yet, as America was grappling with its domestic issues, an international conflict was brewing. On a quiet Sunday morning in December 1941, the attack on Pearl Harbor by Japanese forces thrust the United States into the throes of World War II. This global conflict brought forth key figures who would leave their indelible mark on history. One such person was General Dwight D. Eisenhower. As Supreme Commander of the Allied forces in Europe, Eisenhower orchestrated the successful D-Day invasion, a turning point in the war that marked the beginning of the end for Hitler's Third Reich. These were testing times. Yet, through the leadership of the likes of Roosevelt and Eisenhower, America navigated the rough seas of economic turmoil and global conflict. As it had done countless times before, the nation rose to the challenge, demonstrating an unwavering spirit of resilience that would become a defining characteristic of the American ethos. Through resilience and leadership, America weathered these storms and emerged stronger. So, where does that bring us today? In the aftermath of the Second World War, America experienced an unprecedented economic boom. The 50s and 60s were marked by prosperity and optimism, but also by the struggle for civil rights. This was a period when the country was forced to confront the inequality that had been ingrained in its society for centuries. One man who stood tall during this struggle was Martin Luther King Jr., whose eloquent speeches and peaceful protests played a pivotal role in advancing civil rights. Meanwhile, the Cold War was unfolding on the global stage, with America and the Soviet Union locked in a tense standoff. A key figure during this time was President John F. Kennedy, who navigated through some of the most perilous moments of the Cold War, including the Cuban Missile Crisis. His leadership, though cut tragically short, left an indelible mark on the nation and the world. As we moved into the late 20th century, we saw the birth of the digital revolution. This period was marked by rapid technological advancement that fundamentally changed how we live, work, and communicate. At the forefront of this revolution was Steve Jobs, the visionary co-founder of Apple. His innovations, from the Macintosh to the iPhone, have had an immeasurable impact on society. Today, America faces a new set of challenges and opportunities. From grappling with the implications of an increasingly digital society to navigating the complexities of a rapidly changing global landscape, America continues to adapt and evolve. This is a nation that has been shaped by its past, but is always looking forward, always innovating, always striving for a better tomorrow. From its beginnings as a struggling colony to its current status as a global superpower, the history of America is a testament to the resilience and innovation of its people. Who knows what the next chapter will bring?